Hey, what's going on guys, Rony Boney here, and should Sprint be in Halo 6? Now this is still dividing the community, so before I start the commentary, I would like to say, and as a long-term Halo fan, and I'm going to divide some of you guys because in the Sprint argument, you're either on, one side of the coin or the other. You're either heads or tails, and I'm telling you that there is another option to that. There's not just an A and B option, there is a C option, and if you stick around to the end, I will detail my opinions on that. Now, to answer the topic question, do I think Sprint should be in Halo 6? Yes, I do. Now stick around to the end and I will justify the reasons why I think Sprint could be in Halo 6, and another reason how it could not be in Halo 6 and still work. Ooh, so you're going to see. So I myself, before Halo 5's release, was completely pessimistic about the inclusion of Sprint and some of the Spartan abilities due to their poor responses in Halo 4. However, now that I have ample time in the game, I've made up my mind that Sprint doesn't change the game as much as everyone states, especially seeing as it now influences your readiness when getting into battles and has a shield recharge delay. I think it's fine, but this is still my opinion, guys. I cannot prove anything, so feel free to disagree, but disagree respectfully and let me know your opinions. Break it down properly. Let me know what you're thinking. Don't just leave a hate comment, because I'd like to actually understand and try my best to help this community out by bringing unbiased commentary. And by bringing both sides of the argument, or even a third side of the argument, to the, basically to the forefront. So, however, what I will say is bad about the type of Sprint threads that you see popping up are the polls that go alongside them. When people see this kind of poll, they automatically assume that the people who have voted yes in favor of Sprint are 100% in favor of Sprint. This kind of test, by the way, guys, is I'm a food scientist, so we use these kind of tests for sensory analysis, and it's called a paired preference test. You would put, your product that you're formulating against a competitor product, test it with people, and see which one is the most preferred. But the thing about these tests are they're not very accurate or precise. They give you a general idea of what people's opinions are, but they give no in-depth details. For instance, I could be in favor of Sprint, but not be in favor of some of the facets that go along with Sprint. Whereas if I vote yes, I'm in favor of Sprint, it's nearly just declarative. The statement just stands as, okay, well, this guy likes Sprint, and, he likes everything about it, which isn't true. So we need to have, these kind of polls need to stop because they're inaccurate. They don't represent what people actually think properly. The comment sections do, but people aren't going to just, pretty much rafe through about 18 pages of comments, unless they're me, and figure out what people are generally thinking. So, normally when focus groups are made for games, and in order to try and develop these games out, ranking and scaling tests are made. Instead of, the regular preference tests, these tests, for instance, like for instance for me, I designed a healthy chocolate milk product for a product development module, and we conducted preference tests to gain, just some initial insight, and then we did ranking and scaling tests in order to go through like more criteria, so like color, sweetness, thickness, and things like that, in order to try and really nail what aspects we needed to focus on. And this is what these polls don't do, and people are going to just feel, alienated on the forums if it looks like 30% of people only want, a no Sprint Halo. That's not, it's counterproductive. It's completely counterproductive, as it shows the popular opinion, but does not state why that opinion is popular. People may do so in their comments, like I said, and then arguing and bickering ensues. That's really Halo for you. But again, it doesn't show the finer details. I agree with keeping Sprint in the mix, as it would turn away new fans were it removed at this point in its life cycle. However, a counter argument for that, though, or this point, is that people will come back to Halo if Sprint is removed. But I would like to say, for each of those arguments that I've just made, where is proof of that? We can't rely on people coming back or leaving the game by implementing or removing core mechanics. If they currently don't give a fuck about Halo, or if people in general don't, why would they care about a Halo with Sprint or with no Sprint? I mean, 343 has dealt a lot of damage over the years with Halo. MCC, for one, the fact that it's still, just still dwindling on by a thread is something that is going to stand with 343. So this is the C part now of the coin that I'm trying to purvey to you guys, that there is another way of doing this. Now, what these kinds of questions, would you like Sprint in Halo 6, don't address, is who would play Halo with or without Sprint. Now, I'm sure that's a more useful question to ask, because I will play this game no matter what. Fanboy alert, really. But however, I would prefer a Halo game for everyone. And here's my idea, anyway. Halo 5 is not a Halo game for everyone, unless a classic playlist is implemented for the more classical fans. Now, Could this idea come to fruition? Hell yes it can. All the options for this are in custom games, and this points towards that being a possibility. And I guarantee, guys, that if getting a classic, movement, no Spartan abilities, smaller nostalgia maps mode was heavily, and emphasis on heavily, requested on the forums by the community, then it may happen. Maybe in Halo 5, but probably in Halo 6 if we push for this. Basically what I think is that sprint is fun. It doesn't necessitate maps being that much bigger. I see that a lot by some YouTubers. That's a flat out fucking lie, dude. And that has been demonstrably proven otherwise by several other YouTubers. Yet it still seems to crop up in arguments. Look, sprint adds some cool elements to the game that people don't like. People say compare it to Call of Duty. But I think, if you overextend in Halo 5, you are fucked with sprint. You're just as screwed in previous titles, but the fact that your shield doesn't recharge now removes a lot of the bullshit associated with sprint that Halo players have hated over the years. But on the same hand, a Halo game with classic mechanics would be beneficial and fun to players because they would teach them patience, gun skill, and target prioritization. There's less rooms for mistakes, and hence the competitive spirit would flourish. So the classic Halo made everybody competitive. Everybody was on a level playing field. You couldn't get caught sprinting or anything like that. It made moving around the map, you had to think about what you were doing. So, really, this has been argued for years, and this should show that sprint is going nowhere. The point of this commentary now, and in reality, it's not about whether or not sprint should be kept or removed, but about whether Halo 6 should be a Halo game for everyone, new and old. If the community is split, then the game should be too. Build a classic and a new Halo game and a Warzone game. This seems at this point to be the only viable option, in my opinion, to really bring Halo back to where it was and increase player numbers. Because, as you can see, Halo 5 doesn't have that many player numbers. It still has a lot of people playing, and I still love this, and I will still play the game. But in order to increase numbers, changes do have to be made. But that doesn't mean yanking out current innovations for old mechanics. There has to be a balance. There does. So, what would these viable options mean? That would mean building a good campaign for Halo 6, and Brian Reed, I am talking to you, buddy. Have a classic and new age game types, so a Warzone with less emphasis on wrecks and microtransactions for sure. Less fucking helmets and armor, guys, they're so pointless. Alongside less throwaway wrecks, we want more weapons, 343. We don't want all these helmets and all these emblems, who cares? An adequate launch playlists, core features from the beginning of the game, lots of content at launch, and then a free DLC or monthly content plan with the majority of the content coming from the community. Let us build the game that we want. You give us the tools, we'll do it. We'll make Halo great again. Just fucking listen to us. Just let us do it, 343. Just stop and don't give us the bare minimum. Give us enough so that we can build the game. Oh, and by the way, remove Spartan Charge, because it can burn in hell, as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I think we should focus on instead of arguing over mechanics that we have no hope of removing. We should build a Halo game for everybody. The tools are in Halo 5, guys. This is totally possible and would make everybody happy. And they could port that over to Halo 6. It'd be so fucking easy. And give a split screen as well, by the way. Jesus Christ. And elites. I know I'm asking for a lot, but you know what? It's not a lot, because it's been in every other Halo game. So why the hell are they gone? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Now, like I've shown in most arguments, there is not just an A or B option. There is always a C option. So let's find the C option, guys. And if we don't emphasize constructively what we all want and what is possible, then we'll get shit on all over again like we did with MCC. And that is not an option. Grow up. I mean it. Grow up. Discuss everything whilst taking other people's preferences into account. Don't just dismiss their opinion. Build upon it and build upon the common ground that we have. Stop internally dividing the community, guys, and certain community members. Fucking stop. You can rant all you want, that's fine. But stop dividing this community further, because if you really want Halo to succeed, then ignoring everything about it and hating on it gets you nowhere. It gets the community nowhere. You're just poisoning people. I don't like it. But again, my opinion. It may not be true, but my fucking opinion. So take this with a grain of salt. Alright, guys. I wonder where this will all get us in the long run. Hopefully you have enjoyed this commentary. If you have, remember to leave a comment, a like, and subscribe if you're new. This is Rony Boney, signing out.